Hey everyone, welcome back to the Hardware News Recap of the Week. And this one, your first bit of news, I had to do a Windows update today. It's not newsworthy, it's just that it was just really annoying. Also, the B770 might have been accidentally leaked or not by Intel's official Twitter account. Huawei has a GPU that might be creating some more pressure for chip designers in the West. This one is focused on everyone knows it, everyone loves it. Well, everyone with like 9 figures in their net worth, but AI GPUs, that's right, there's more of them. RAM prices and hard drive prices are both continuing to go up. Hard drive prices is kind of a new change that hasn't been moving too much until recently. And then also there's some watches that are themed like the PlayStation, the original one. So we'll talk about those too, I guess. We need something that's not just about price increases. Although the watch is like $700. So. Before that, this video is brought to you by Height and their X50 case lineup, including the glass and air versions. The X50 and X50 Air cases have a unique, rounded design with a heavy focus on large ventilation ports in spite of the curvature of the chassis panels. The X50 and X50 Air use relatively thick stamped metals for many of the case components and have fan mount locations front, side, bottom, and back, with the top supporting a power supply and traditional top-mounted rear exhaust. The X50 series tested overall positively in our review benchmarks and made waves for its unique look, including multiple different colors, although the case also comes in traditional black and white coloring. Learn more at the link in the description below. All right, quick update for you on the GN front. We are almost done with our next 2 big research pieces. I think both of these are going to go on GNCA. Definitely one of them is. The next one is going on GNCA, which is our other channel. That'll be linked below if you want to catch it. But basically, these are deep dives that are part of our AI dystopia series of coverage. We are running some major coverage through the next couple months, basically all in a series about data centers, overreach of corporations into private lives, AI kind of just as a general buzzword, and its ruinous relationship with the world. And also, this next one is going to be talking about NVIDIA and Palantir and that relationship. We've already run 2 smaller pieces in this series, so if you haven't seen them, they're on this channel, both of them. One is the NVIDIA and US GPU export controls update, and then the other one is the Micron video, talking about Micron and the crucial abandonment of consumer memory. But these are the first 2 kind of big standalone deep dive investigative reports we have that are coming out in the series. And the one on Palantir and NVIDIA specifically tackles a topic that I think a lot of people are wondering about, which is specifically Palantir. What the fuck is it? So this is the company that NVIDIA gleefully boasted it is partnering with maybe a month or 2 ago now, where Jensen Huang talked about how NVIDIA will accelerate everything Palantir does. If you're wondering what Palantir does, here's a quick snippet.
Our product is used on occasion to kill people.
Also, what they do includes global surveillance, cataloging, basically everything everybody does. That includes your associates, your significant others, places you go, things like that, through things like facial recognition, identifying cars and license plates, tracking them, building a profile on people. And that includes, of course, their other chief export that CEO Alex Karp likes to brag about, which is, again, killing people. This was a huge research piece, and it took our team a few weeks to pull together. That one will be going up on GNCA this week. Our next piece that we're working on finalizing is also huge. It's going to be probably a couple hours long for that video. We flew to the UK for the next one coming up. Should be up within the next 2 weeks or so. And we spoke with several people on the ground to talk about the police raiding a home of a private citizen over dev kits and game cartridges. We spoke with the London police. We taught them in an interesting, well, we'll talk about that in the video. We spoke with the man arrested. We spoke with Sega, sort of, Nintendo, sort of, and workers out at scrap yards for the story. That one, this is really bizarre, where it's like a guy buys discarded, thrown away dev kits at a scrapyard, and then somehow the police end up in his home accusing him of money laundering and a whole bunch of other things, according to the report we've got coming up. So you'll see that pretty soon. I'm not sure which channel that's going on. I think it's going to be GNCA, but it does fit here pretty well too, because it's ultimately it's about gaming stuff. It's just like the kind of backdrop of it is the corporate overreach and online surveillance, which ties into how they found where those cartridges went. So we'll be talking about that. It also relates to a video game museum that was trying to buy those kits off the guy who was arrested. So anyway, that's kind of the update on those. As for our AI Dystopia backer kits, for all the people who backed us and are helping fund this series, you're gonna get your first 2 videos there. We've been slowly shipping the orders from this AI Dystopia announcement. We're still within our window of shipping for wave 1, which is currently the only wave. We don't have a second wave at this point. And so that date range has been listed on the website since we launched it, but as an update, that is by January 31st. We expect to ship all those currently, and every existing order is within that group. So there's nothing that's pushed back further than that right now. Now also, and this is important for those of you who signed up for the Ghost tier, I'm gonna be sending out an email invite pretty soon to the group Q&A sessions with me. So if you wanna join that, make sure you check your inboxes, because I'm gonna send an invite. I don't wanna spam people, so I'm only gonna send it one time. It will be sent by support@gamersnexus.net, but it is going via the Squarespace server, which is where our store page is hosted with them. So you might want to filter for @gamersnexus.net URLs, and Squarespace just has a word in your inbox to catch it. That invite will go out sometime within the next couple weeks. I'm going to do a couple sessions of group Q&As with people who are in the Ghost tier, and then if you sign up after that period, we'll do another round. I'll send a different email blast out, and you'll get an invite link via Calendly, which was something actually our viewers recommended before. It worked great for the last one. So basically, I'll do a YouTube live stream. You can pop in to chat during a window I'll specify, and then we're trying to cover as much of the time zones as we can by doing some morning, some night in my time zone, and then yeah, you'll get that invite pretty soon. So anyway, if you haven't gotten your order yet, we're going to continue shipping those through January 31st. If anything changes on that, we'll of course let you know. And then otherwise, check GNCA if you want to catch the first big one for the series that is going up this week, and the UK one, I'm not sure here or there, but it'll go up soon as well. All right, up next, in a deleted Twitter post, the official Intel Gaming Twitter account talked about the B770 GPU. It was in reply to user Punmaster STP, who wrote, quote, "With the B770, Panther Lake, and Nova Lake on the horizon, there's lots to get hyped about in the future as well," end quote. To which Intel Gaming replied, 100 emoji%. We're thrilled to hear that you're pumped about the B770, Panther Lake, and Nova Lake. The future of gaming and performance is looking seriously exciting. The cool face emoji, end quote. Intel has since deleted the post, but thanks to video cards for preserving it. Just to point out the obvious here, because this is the world we live in now, and Intel is just as much to blame for this as their peers. It's possible this was like an AI-assisted response. I don't fucking know anymore, all right? Like, I'm not sure. The only reason I point that out, though, is because the response is, and I'm so sorry if there's a social media person who wrote this, but the response is written like an AI response. It's like the exact same things in the exact same order that are listed. There's a lot of ways to maybe explain this. Maybe a social media person didn't know the B770 isn't officially a product. Maybe they know that it's a product, but they don't know that it hasn't been announced yet. Whatever. The point is, it does seem likely that the B770 is real at this point, because there have been a couple leaks now, and this one was more of an official acknowledgement. Possibly backing up the idea that a higher power GPU from Intel is coming in general are shipping manifests, pairing a model number that allegedly follows Intel's pattern for its other GPUs. They're listed as 300W, or we'd assume 300 watt GPUs, which is 110 watts higher than the B580's total board power. Honestly, more than anything, the fact that they deleted the tweet makes it seem like it's real at this point. If it is, CES 2026 in the first 2 weeks of January would be the most sensible time for Intel to announce it. If it's going to be soon, they'd probably attach to that event. It would probably be a scaled up version of a B580 in some capacity. VRAM would likely affect pricing considerations for Intel and is probably complicating things like it is for the Steam machine at this point. And ultimately, injecting more affordable options into the market, even if it's kind of like a new mid-range for Intel, would be a good thing for PC builders. It's an absolute shame about how much the memory industry has screwed all of us, as we've talked about in a couple episodes and standalone videos now. But in the very least, the GPUs, up until recently, are going in the right direction, which is down in price. They need to go down more, but they have been trending down. It's just a question of when does the DRAM situation catch up to GPUs as well. Anyway, B770 hopefully will give us something to talk about from Intel, because we'd like to see more from them this generation than just the two that exist now. Up next, SK Hynix is allegedly expecting the DRAM shortage to continue until the morale Okay, that's not, we need to set more realistic expectations. The morale may not improve, but the years will march on, with SK Hynix allegedly pointing towards 2028. And this is according to what is purported to be internal meeting notes shared by Bulls Lab on Twitter. If the leak is real, it doesn't bode well, not only for the DIY PC market, but for literally anything that uses DRAM, which is most things with electronics in them now. Since we don't know if these notes are legitimate at this point, they haven't been reported officially by Hynix, We'll only cover the high points and not get into the weeds of the specific numbers. According to the notes, quote, supplier inventories are depleted to minimum levels, and production capacity is expected to see limited growth compared to previous upturns, end quote. Another bad omen is an expectation for, quote, general PC DRAM, and quote, production to fall short of demand through 2028 due to the expectation of new fabs coming online by then. Whether or not this specific leak is real, the reality remains that DRAM is just getting hoovered up by all of the AI and data center companies. I mean, everybody's into it. Everybody with the 9-figure bank account is really into AI. They maybe 10 figures actually would be better, but they really think you should be into it too, so that they can have an 11-figure bank account. But everybody's into it. Until progress on whatever AI is at this point slows down, or the bubble pops, it's probably in the best interest of PC builders and enthusiasts to hang on to all the RAM that they currently have. Or bring it to a financial advisor and be like, you might not know what this is, and it might not look like stock, but let me tell you about my fastest appreciating asset of all time, this stick of 8 gigabytes of DDR4 3200. That's right. I mean, actually it is, I checked, and if you bought memory like a year ago, or even if you bought memory like 4 months ago, it genuinely is one of the fastest appreciating assets. So there's something to think about. Not financial advice. I don't know, man. It's not good for memory. Earlier this year, we published a video demonstrating NVIDIA's 32-bit PhysX limitations. Namely, it doesn't work anymore on the 50 series. That was a pretty big limit. And it left players of older games on newer hardware out of luck. Now, 32-bit PhysX is back in 9 games for modern NVIDIA GPUs, and there's support for more games that'll be added in the future. NVIDIA wrote this, quote, we heard the feedback from the community. Allow me to just insert the appropriate amount of sycophancy here. Yay. And with the launch of our new driver today, we are adding custom support for GeForce gamers' most played PhysX accelerated games, enabling full performance on GeForce RTX 50 series GPUs, in line with our existing PhysX support on prior generation GPUs, end quote. The list of games with support includes Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag, Borderlands 2, the Metro games, and Mirror's Edge. Support for Batman Arkham Asylum will come in 2026. And NVIDIA pulled the 32-bit PhysX support back earlier this year, at least that's when we were talking about it, and we fully explored the impact of the loss in March. Our benchmarks showed that the RTX 5080 performed hilariously poorly compared to the GTX 980, and even sometimes the GTX 580. That was in Mirror's Edge and in other games. That's right, the GTX 580 from 2010 was competitive with the RTX 5080 in some situations. In March, NVIDIA open sourced not only the PhysX SDK as it had done before, but also the GPU simulation kernel source code. Since then, NVIDIA has made several releases to the PhysX GitHub. Breaking old flagship features that sold GPUs and games is obviously bad. It is not optimal, especially if they are integral to the game's experience and actually enjoying it. Obviously, this is exactly why vendor and hardware locked features are such a concern every time they roll around. It's the same concerns. I mean, ray tracing's kind of right there with it. You know, it looks like that's going to stick around a little longer than kind of PhysX did. It's made more of a splash across multiple vendors. It's not totally vendor locked, but the point is stuff like that, where the execution of how the technology is handled or processed could change. Maybe they discover something better, and it breaks old stuff. That's always the concern. It's at least good that they've implemented some improvements for these games, though, to fix these so far, and they've got some more on the radar. All right, up next, Huawei's Ascend GPU. This is the Ascend 950. It's a domestic GPU to China, and this is an AI-focused processor. It utilizes advanced packaging technology and an interesting dual die layout and on-package VRAM. Mostly interesting because it potentially gives some competition to the incumbents in the industry. This information comes from a photo of a scuffed-looking GPU package shared to Twitter by Jukan05. The photo shows 2 large dies located centrally, 2 smaller dies flanking those, and 2 rows of 4 VRAM modules totaling 128 gigabytes of memory from the official sources. This type of layout is essentially unheard of in the consumer space. Intel's Lunar Lake is maybe the closest sort of exception to that, but it's becoming more common in high-performance computing applications due to enhancing the potential performance characteristics of the memory and also being as economical as possible on the silicon used. The post details that the Ascend 950 is about 65% of the size of another design, the 910C, which itself is allegedly 75% of the FP16 compute power of NVIDIA's H200. Clearly, we've seen NVIDIA GPUs in China, including banned GPUs, and this Huawei card, as purely AI and data center focused, would compete with some of those, with kind of a key factor being whether or not NVIDIA's GPUs are readily available in China. If they are banned and they get more difficult to get, then Huawei starts to become more compelling. It's not a gaming part, this card, but it could have implications across NVIDIA's business, including gaming. Now, for the people we spoke with in China during the Black Market documentary, one of the things we learned was that basically no one there uses Huawei right now, really. There's a few places where they do, but a lot of people still need CUDA. NVIDIA is still desirable, and it's not that hard to get a lot of the NVIDIA GPUs still. So in massive, massive quantities, like thousands of cards, it's more difficult. But for a lot of use cases, Huawei still hasn't really made a huge dent, but we also think it would be foolish to completely discard any new GPU upstart right now, because in the AI processing space, with data centers in particular, because it's so new, there is room for someone to just have a massive breakthrough out of nowhere that could shake some of the current incumbency or lineup from NVIDIA. The biggest thing NVIDIA has in its favor is CUDA. So as long as everyone's relying on that, they're kind of locking people in. But the China part gets interesting just because of the ongoing export control battles between the US and China, where if it does become too difficult or burdensome, or if the Chinese government decides to further restrict NVIDIA GPU purchasing ability of some companies there, then at that point, Huawei is going to have just default customers where they have no other option, and so they're going to buy Huawei, and that'll kind of self-fuel its advancement. So anyway, kind of interesting, even if you're not doing so-called AI stuff, if you do, for example, the actual work and play video games with your GPUs or something, then this could still have implications in those markets later, like normal business type workstation uses and gaming, just depending on if it ever makes a dent in NVIDIA's market share. So anyway, the ongoing export control fight between the US and China is flavoring a lot of this right now and how it's developing. So up next, MSI's Godlike motherboard has a new category of board that is fitting for RAM prices right now. The board is launched in what we're calling the RFE segment of the market, which stands for really fucking expensive. So the new MSI X870E Godlike X edition, which is really fucking expensive at $1,300, has a matte black and gold colorway that actually looks nice, but maybe not $1,300 nice. In the very least, we think it looks better than MSI's previous additions to the Godlike line, which looked really gaudy. It's like the MSI God-like. Did you see what I did? The Godlike X edition commemorates the 10th anniversary of the Godlike line and is limited to 1,000 units. The motherboard is packed with features, it better be, including a magnetically attached, quote, easy bridge, end quote, that acts as a breakout panel and has a large screen on top to display debug information or various animations. That's worth at least a couple dollars. It can also be a clock. We assume that's where your money really goes. The VRM on the Godlike X edition is absurd, with a 24+2+1 configuration of 110 amp power stages for when you want to slap your 9950 X3D with chip-killing amounts of power. The motherboard has 5 M.2 slots on board, but also comes with MSI's late-night pharmacologically inspired branded expanders card that adds 2 M.2 slots accessible from the rear of the system via sleds. The rear I.O. is suitably excessive, featuring 7 USB-C ports, the most we've seen on a, I guess, consumer board like this, and 8 10 gigabit USB-A ports, dual 10 gigabit and 5 gigabit LAN, and then Wi-Fi 7. Most importantly, of course, the Godlike X edition comes with a display stand, so you can put your $1,300 piece of art not in a computer, and a tiny, all-black Lucky the Dragon plush. For the morbidly curious, Level 1 Techs has a full review of the board, and we'll play a clip of that for you here.
Look at that. Our cover, Godlike, Level 1 Techs. After the fall of our society, archaeologists will find that in the future and think, what the hell?
And if nothing else, it's worth checking out just because it's Wendell, and that means that it'll be a fun watch. All right, next one, AMD's FSR Redstone update is out. We talked about that already. In classic nerd fashion, though, it has already been tampered with by the enthusiast community, and people are starting to mess with it and make it do things it's not supposed to do. A user on Reddit showed that they were able to force the new Redstone fake frame generation update into Monster Hunter Wilds, which, according to the user, technically doesn't support the FrameGen override, specifically in Radeon software. The user did this via what they call a pre-alpha version of OptiScaler. Our understanding is that it's used to swap upscaling and FrameGen technologies in games that could technically support them, but aren't official options. OptiScaler could, for example, replace DLSS with XESS. The user's side-by-side video shows what they say is FSR's old analytical frame generation on the left and FSR's Redstone ML-based frame generation on the right. In this clip, ghosting is much reduced around the glowing familiar. We just released a video on AMD's FSR Redstone update focusing on frame-by-fake frame image quality analysis of Redstone's frame generation and fake frames, along with latency testing for both new and old FrameGen technologies. The video includes a blind side-by-side test of Redstone using FrameGen on versus off in Cyberpunk 2077, and we also briefly analyzed AMD's new ray regeneration feature in Call of Duty Black Ops 7, which is literally the only game currently supporting AMD ray regeneration at launch, similar to how NVIDIA was only ray reconstruction with Cyberpunk at launch. It's unfortunate considering that almost nobody likes Blops somehow the 7th. I don't know how we got there, but we want to revisit ray regeneration if or when it spreads to more games, or in the case of Radiance caching, when it exists at all. Up next, right to repair for military equipment thwarted. This is just, it's more right to repair stuff. Of course, we'd recommend, as always, checking out Louis Rossman for more details on all this. He follows it really well. He's very familiar with right to repair laws. Congressional efforts, the news is, to get right to repair into law for the U.S. military now have been cut off following a closed-door meeting between Defense Committee chairs House Speaker Mike Johnson and Senate Majority Leader John Thune. The Intercept ran a report that both the House and Senate had passed proposals to require defense contractors to supply manuals, drawings, and parts lists to the military. However, it appears that lobbyists were able to successfully argue against such right to repair initiatives by claiming that they would cripple innovation and reportedly cause defense contractors to not sell to the Pentagon. That's right, somehow defense companies are going to not sell to the largest customer on Earth ever in history. Somehow I find that hard to believe. I just, something about it tells me that the U.S. is going to keep buying stuff from the defense contractors. I don't think they're going to be like, no, we'd rather go out of business than provide manuals. Like, that seems unlikely to me, but okay, sure, let's just go with that, because as we all know, the surety of the U.S. military continuing to buy things from defense contractor lies somewhere between death and taxes, which seems like a somewhat prescient statement to say, given, how they would be used. But sure, let's just say that they would stop buying, for argument's sake. Completely regardless of your political leanings and opinions on the military or the US military, corporate capture of the repair process via overly restrictive policies has direct and verifiable negative impacts for everybody. Take the weapons out of it. The Public Interest Research Group, or PIRG, has an article covering a situation back in 2007 where a manufacturer refused to assist the US Army when one of just 2 CT scanners in a combat zone suffered severely degraded functionality. An onboard microcontroller used for diagnostics had deactivated after a predetermined 1-year period. The manufacturer told the Army to buy a new device because the CT scanner was too old. We get that there are practical limits to supporting any technology, but there's something particularly disgusting about manufacturers who hinder the operation of life-saving medical devices, whether that's in the military or in a civilian hospital, sort of stateside. In either of those situations, deciding, nope, 1-year activation window, otherwise you're not only gonna get, that Windows is activated, otherwise you're not only gonna get the activate device watermark in the corner, it's also just not gonna work when someone has their life on the line. Yeah, it's particularly dystopian and evil and disgusting, especially with baked-in deactivation periods for a thing that might otherwise be fine. But let's just say, even if there had been a legitimate reason for such a thing where the device just breaks, a CT scanner breaks, or something like that, they can still provide parts for repair to keep that thing operational and facilitate self-repair, because, I mean, it's kind of like, I don't understand how we've gone from it's about laptops and phones and consoles and consumer devices and your right to maintain those as someone who wants to play video games on it, to, you know what, actually let's do that for medical too. I know it's been like obviously since 2007 in this report, but longer than that. It's been going on a long time. It just seems like crazy. Anyway, that's your news on Right to Repair. Check out Lewis for more on it, and also a lot more swearing. He's got a higher, right now he's going to hit his swear quota sooner than I will for this week. But anyway, on top of an already 2 to 3 times memory price increase since August for reasons covered in our standalone RAM, what the fuck video, I'm going to hit that swear quota one way or the other, Lewis. Samsung is now said to be increasing its DRAM pricing by 100% for B2B customers. Samsung is one of just 3 global DRAM suppliers of any meaningful capacity. There are others, but it's something like less than 6% of the market as of 2021 reports. And its partners will bear the pricing increase. So people who buy from Samsung, whether that's like Kingston or G-Skill or whomever, they're going to see that price increase. They're, of course, going to pass it on to you and to their business clients. Jukan on Twitter cited Tech Now Voice, a Taiwanese publication we're unfamiliar with, in noting price increases for memory again. The publication noted that Samsung's contract price for DRAM has increased around or a little over 100% from its prior DDR5 contract pricing. The original source claims that Samsung is out of stock or is fully booked for its stock, leading to the sudden jump. We checked DRAM Exchange and found that DDR4 pricing is also continuing to rise, compounded with the limited availability due to major fabs switching entirely to DDR5. Maybe more alarming is that we're seeing the first impact of price increases on video card memory outside of just the GPUs having finally come down in price overall. GDDR6 VRAM is cited in DRAM Exchange as having increased by about 5% in recent history, which is among the highest for spot price changes session to session, aside from DDR4 UDIM 16GB pricing. But however much you hate the AI companies propping up the AI bubble that will eventually be supported by the financial well-being of normal people who have nothing to do with any of this shit, you don't hate them enough. Gamers Nexus says that Tom's Hardware, says that Digitimes, says that Nikkei Asia Review, says that hard drive prices are increasing. That's right, we're the only news you can watch to get the news, citing the news, sourced from the news, following another news source. It's the news disguised as the news, playing another news. Tom says that Digitimes, says that Nikkei, says that hard drive contract prices increased 4% quarterly. Anecdotally, we noticed that 16 terabyte and 20 terabyte hard drive prices have increased by $60 to $100 since we last bought drives for our video editing server. PC Part Picker reinforces this. Now, flash storage is different from hard drives, but just to look at that too, we've already been able to see a slow uptick. For example, 256 gigabyte SATA drive costs, which are now less common, are climbing past $40 on average for the first time in over a year. It's not a hard drive, it's also not a common size anymore, and SATA is starting to get abandoned by some companies. So, spinning Rust storage instead, according to PC Part Picker, has increased for 2 terabyte disks to around $110 to $120 on average in just the last few weeks. This is after almost 2 years of total price stability per PC Part Picker. The data doesn't go back further than that publicly, but it was around $75 to $80 in June of 2024 per the site. The site hasn't shown a major aggregate change in 4 terabyte drives yet, although they are ticking back up. 8 terabyte drives have climbed markedly, approaching $250 from $200 for the past year or so. 16 terabyte is overall down from the oldest data in PC Part Picker record, but is back on the climb now. Going back to the Tom's report, of the Digitimes report, of the Nikkei reports, the report of the report reports that a boom in domestic Chinese PC manufacturing coupled with the world's obsession with AI bullshit is causing the price increase. Tom cites the US data center sector as the West's driving force of hard drive acquisition, again in addition to China domestic PC manufacturing. Similar to the DDR4 industry, the hard drive industry has also been reducing the amount of total supply available for hard drives over the years as flash storage has become more popular, especially in consumer, for primary disks. And it's unlikely that companies who totally exited spinning disks or making the parts that at least interact with them will re-enter without assurance that this isn't some short-lived fad where they'll be left holding a bag of parts at the end of it for hard drives. So limited ability exists right now to ramp production and meet new demand, which is also something we've seen in other parts of the industry like DDR4. Up next, Sony is launching a set of 3 PlayStation watches, or as they call them, wait, sorry, let me get my language right, timepieces. These exquisite timepieces mark 30 years of PlayStation in collaboration with Anicorn. All 3 will be available for pre-order soon, and they say, quote, the first PlayStation limited edition mechanical watch, end quote, that's the actual name, is limited to 300 pieces and is priced at $780. The most elaborate design is retro-styled with PlayStation's 4 face buttons on the dial, start and select button, minute and hour hands, a second hand cut in the shape of a lineup of all 4 face buttons, and a central island with a raised glazed original PlayStation logo. The watch body and bezel appear to be light gray metal with a sandblasted finish. The rear of the watch is etched with the serial number and has a glass window to make the movement visible. The first PlayStation watch is packed in a screwed shut metal box and comes with an NFC memory capsule that they say can, quote, save your moment, load your memory, and overwrite your journey. I'm gonna be honest, that last part makes me real nervous. I'm not really big on the marketing phrasing of overwrite your journey. Maybe they're getting ready for some AI thing. I don't know. It sounds like a Cyberdyne Systems type of thing, or a Total Recall, maybe. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of that phrasing. The other two play symbol designs are much simpler visually, with light mode and dark mode options. The main visual feature of each is a set of face button cutouts floating above the hands in what they call an oil injection display. The dials are unadorned in comparison to the main retro design, with flat white or black with a contrasted PlayStation logo and simple metal hands. These don't even provide tick marks for each hour. While researching for this story, we've learned something incredibly important, which is that the line of 30th anniversary PlayStation watches is joined by a full PlayStation fit. That's right, with the PlayStation watches, you can also get the limited edition PlayStation 5 and controllers from earlier this year. We imagine the full fit for these, though, would also include a matching denim shirt, hat, and sneakers as you sit down to eat your matching PlayStation pasta, obviously. I want to make a Gamer's Nexus watch, except instead of having hour marks with times, it's just going to be one mark that says disappointment on it. And also the hands will be broken. It'll just point it at that all the time. That's it for this one. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more. And check out, if you care about this kind of coverage, but check out GNCA, link below. If you don't, then whatever. That's why it's a separate channel. But if you want to catch the NVIDIA Palantir stuff, some pretty serious topics for that one. So that will be on GNCA this week. Check back. Thanks for watching. And you can go to store.gamersnexus.net to support us directly, or patreon.com/gamersnexus. We'll see you all next time.